Kajo, Everyday Life by Eihei Dogen. From Shobogenzo, the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye. In general, in the house of the Buddhist patriarchs, drinking tea and eating meals are everyday life itself. This behavior of drinking tea and eating meals has long been transmitted and is realized in the present. Thus, the Buddhist patriarchs' vivid activity of drinking tea and eating meals has come to us. Master Dokai of Taiyozan Mountain asked Tosu, "The ideas and words of a Buddhist patriarch are as everyday tea and meals. Beyond this, are there any other words with which to teach people or not?" Tosu says, "Say, the capital is under the emperor's direct rule. Is there also any dependence upon the ancient rulers, U, To, Gyo, and Shun, or not?" Taiyo is about to open his mouth. Tosu covers the master's mouth with his fly whisk and says, "By the time you first established the will, you already deserved 30 strokes." At this, Taiyo attains realization and does prostrations, then goes at once. Tosu says, "Come back a while, Acharya." Taiyo, in the end, does not turn his head. Tosu says, "Has the disciple arrived in the state without doubt?" Holding his hands over his ears, Taiyo leaves. So, we should clearly maintain and rely upon the teaching that a Buddhist patriarch's ideas and words are a Buddhist patriarch's everyday tea and meals. Coarse tea and plain food in everyday life are the ideas and words of a Buddhist patriarch. Buddhist patriarchs make tea and meals, and tea and meals maintain Buddhist patriarchs. That being so, we rely on no tea and meal energy outside of these tea and meals. And we never waste the Buddhist patriarch energy in these tea and meals. Is there also dependence upon U, To, Gyo, and Shun, or not? We should strive to learn in practice this manifestation of the view. Beyond this, are there any other words with which to teach people or not? We should spring out in experience from the brains of this question. We should experiment and observe in experience whether we are able to spring out or unable to spring out. Great Master Musai of Sakito-an Hut or Nanguku-san Mountain says, I thatched a hut and have no wealth. Having finished a meal, I calmly look forward to a nap. I have finished a meal, an experience which he repeats again, and repeats over again, is the idea and words of a Buddhist patriarch who experiences meals. One who has not yet finished a meal is not yet satisfied with experience. At the same time, this truth of calmness, having finished a meal, is realized before a meal, is realized during a meal, and is realized after a meal. To misunderstand that in the house of having finished a meal there is always the eating of meals, is learning in practice of only 4 or 5 pints out of 10. My late master, the eternal Buddha, preaches to the assembly. I remember the following. A monk asks Hyakujo, "What is a miracle?" Hyakujo says, "Sitting alone on great and mighty peak." Monks, do not be disturbed. Let the fellow kill himself by sitting for a while. If someone today were suddenly to ask, Acharya Nyojo, what is a miracle? I would only say to them, how could anything be a miracle? Finally, what? The Patra of Joji, having passed to Tendo, I eat meals. In the everyday life of a Buddhist patriarch, there is always a miracle. It has been called sitting alone on great and mighty peak. Even though we now hear, let the fellow kill himself by sitting, his sitting is still a miracle. And there is something even more miraculous than that. It has been called the Patra of Joji passing to Tendo and eating meals. A miracle in every instance and for every person is always eating meals. This being so, sitting alone on great and mighty peak is just eating meals. The Patra is used for eating meals, and what is used for eating meals is the Patra. For this reason, the Master speaks of Joji Patra and Tendo eating meals. After satisfaction, there is recognition of meals. After completely eating a meal, there is satisfaction. After recognition, there is satisfaction with meals. And after satisfaction, there is still eating meals. Now then, what is the Patra? In my opinion, it is beyond the description. It is only a piece of wood, and it is not as black as Japanese lacquer. How could it be unyielding stone? How could it be an iron man? It is bottomless, and it is without nostrils. It swallows space in one gulp, and space receives it with joined hands. My late master, the eternal Buddha, on one occasion, while addressing an assembly in the abbot's quarters of Shobogenzo Zenin Temple in Daishu, says, "When hunger comes, I eat a meal. When tiredness comes, I sleep. Forges span the universe." Hunger coming is the vivid state of a person who has eaten meals already. For a person who has not experienced eating meals, hunger is impossible. So remember, we for whom hunger may be an everyday state are decidedly people who have finished a meal. Tiredness coming may be further tiredness experienced in tiredness. It has totally sprung free from the top of the brains of tiredness. Therefore, it is a moment of the present when in vivid activity through the whole body is totally turned around. Sleeping is sleeping that borrows the eyes of Buddha, the eyes of Dharma, the eyes of wisdom, the eyes of patriarchs, and the eyes of outdoor pillars and stone lanterns. My late master, the eternal Buddha, upon proceeding from Shobogenzo Temple in Daishu to his assignment at Jojiji Temple in Rin-an-Fu City, says in formal preaching in the Dharma Hall, "Half a year I ate meals and sat on Bampo Peak, shut off by thousand myriads of mists and clouds. Suddenly a thunderclap resounded. The colour of spring in the capital is apricot blossom crimson." The teaching of the Buddhist patriarchs who administered the teaching during the age of the Buddha was in every case sitting on Bampo Peak and eating meals. Mastery of the transmission of the Buddha's wisdom and life is just realization of the vivid state of eating meals. Half a year of sitting on Bampo Peak is called eating meals. The enclosing mists and clouds are incalculable. Though the thunderclap is sudden, the spring colour of the apricot blossoms is nothing other than crimson. The capital means each present instance of naked sincerity. The ineffable state of these situations is eating meals. Bampo is the name of the peak on which stands Zuiganji Temple. My late master, the Eternal Buddha, addressing the assembly on one occasion in the Buddha Hall of Zuiganji Temple in Keigen-fu City in Minshu, says, "The golden in fine form is to get dressed and to eat meals. That is why I bow to you. I sleep early and get up late. I talk of the profound and preaching of the fine are enormously free. Sternly be on guard, lest a twirling flower inflames you." This instant we should already have seen through the heavy burden. The golden and fine form describes getting dressed and eating meals. Getting dressed and eating meals are the golden and fine form. Never grope around asking what person gets dressed and eats meals. Do not say that someone else is the golden and fine form. Then your state will be this expression of the truth. One to whom the Master says, "That is why I bow to you," is like that. When I have already started eating the meal, you bow with joined hands and eat the meal. Because we sternly guard against twirling flowers, we are like that. Zen Master Enchi Dayan of Chokei Temple in Fukushu says in formal preaching to the assembly in the Dharma Hall, "Dayan lived on Isan Mountain for 30 years, eating Isan meals, shitting Isan shit, not learning Isan Zen. Just watching over a castrated water buffalo. When it strayed into the grass, I dragged it out. When it invaded another's seed patch, I whipped it. Though disciplined for a long time already, as a pitiful creature, it suffered people's remarks. Now it has turned into a white ox on open ground. It is always before me. All day long it is in a state of conspicuous brightness. Even if driven away, it does not leave." We should clearly receive and retain this preaching. 30 years of effort in an order of Buddhist patriarchs are eating meals with no miscellaneous worries at all. When the vivid state of eating meals is realized, supervision of a castrated water buffalo is naturally the standard. Great Master Shinsei of Joshu asks a newly arrived monk, "Have you ever been here before?" The monk says, "Yes, I have." The master says, "Have some tea." Later, he asks another monk, "Have you ever been here before?" The monk says, "No, never before." The master says, "Have some tea." A chief of the temple office asks the master, "Why did you say, 'Have some tea' to the monk who has been here before, and also say, 'Have some tea' to the monk who has never been here before?" The master calls to the chief. The chief answers. The master says, "Have some tea." Here is beyond the brain, is beyond the nostrils, and is beyond Joshu district, because it springs free from here. It has already arrived here, and it has never been here before. This place is the place where the ineffable exists, but they discuss it only as having already arrived and never having been before. For this reason, my late master says, what person in a painted tower or a tavern could come to meet Joshu and enjoy Joshu's tea? In sum, the everyday life of Buddhist patriarchs is nothing other than drinking tea and eating meals. Preached to the assembly under Yamashibu Peak in Etsu-u on the 17th day of the 12th lunar month in the first year of Kangen.